नमस्कार। श्री शेखर दत्त जी, Miss Sharmista Mukherjee, daughter of late Sri Pranab Mukherjee ji, Mr. Istuda Ebar, distinguished guests, and others who are watching this program online, and my dear brothers and sisters. Time flies so fast that it is 1 year since one of the veterans of India's public life and the highly respected Sri Pranab Mukherjee left us for heavenly abode after a long and illustrious journey in the cause of nation building. I have had the honor of knowing him personally, besides benefiting from his words of wisdom. यह मेरे लिए गौरव का विषय है कि प्रणब मुखर्जी लेगेसी फाउंडेशन द्वारा आयोजित इस प्रथम प्रणब मुखर्जी स्मृति व्याख्यान में संबोधन करने का अवसर मुझे मिला है। यह फाउंडेशन उनकी प्रतिभाशाली पुत्री शर्मिष्ठा मुखर्जी तथा उनके निकट सहयोगियों के द्वारा स्थापित किया गया है। प्रणब दा के जीवन और कृतित्व के संदेश को शाश्वत बनाने हेतु इस प्रयास के लिए मैं शर्मिष्ठा जी को बधाई देता हूं। मुझे विश्वास है कि प्रणब दा की स्मृति से प्रेरणा लेकर भावी पीढ़ियों को लाभ मिलेगा। Pranab Da was among the few distinguished politicians who made invaluable and multifaceted contribution to the march of modern India. He was a key participant for over 50 years in the 74-year journey of independent India. He had left a mark of his own in various capacities that he served the country, Mother India. It was a remarkable and illustrious journey by all counts and standards. To present this journey in proper perspective, we need to briefly recall the same. From the flicker of a lamp in a remote Marathi village in West Bengal, Pranab Da traveled several miles to the dazzling chandeliers of Delhi. From an upper division clerk in the Post and Telegraph Office, he rose to become the President of India. Pranab Da earned every office he held by the dint of his hard work and record of contributions, unlike many who got them on a platter. Pranab Da's journey and rise was meteoric. Ever since he first entered the Rajya Sabha in 1969 as a Bangla Congress candidate at the age of 34 years. Subsequently served as Union Minister as many as 13 times since 1973 and guided the functioning of as many as 10 important ministries and departments. He was the Minister of Finance, External Affairs, Defense, Commerce, Industrial Development, Steel and Mines, Supply, etc. for a long period of over 21 years. He was also the Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission. Pranab Da was member of Rajya Sabha 5 times and twice member of Lok Sabha. He then became the first citizen of our country. Very few of our leaders got to serve the country for such a long period and in such diverse capacities. I have no hesitation in describing Pranab Da in common parlance as the envy of every aspiring politician, but the pride of the nation. More than the statistics about the long years of being in power, it was the contributions of Pranab Da that made him unique in several ways. He deployed his sharp mind, phenomenal memory, amazing, deep understanding of our country's diversity, history, and civilizational values, and knowledge of statecraft to best use to various aspects of nation building. I have known and seen him as a pathfinder in troubled situations, As an immaculate observer of complex situations, Pranab Da proved himself as a consensus builder and played a key role in tiding over several such situations. This was borne out by the fact that he chaired as many as 95 groups of ministers, GOMs, during his long stint in public life. As the finance minister, more than once, Pranab Da have strived to improve the finances of our country. He played an important role in our country, clearing the last installment of the first ever IMF loan in early 80s. He also initiated targeting budget deficit besides being an early reformer as a minister of both finance and commerce. During his stint as Minister of External Affairs, he deftly handled our relations with Russia, even while forging strong ties with USA. India became the full dialogue partner of the ASEAN during his stewardship. Known for his institution building capacity, Pranab Da introduced regional roll-up banks, set up Exim Bank, and played a key role in the setting up of the World Trade Organization. These are only a few illustrations. He played a key role in many of the momentous decisions taken and initiatives launched during his long stint in office. While reading the first volume of my selected speeches in February 2019, Pranab Da spoke at length on the need for inclusive and sustainable development and the concept of Antyodaya and Sarvodaya that formed the core of our civilizational values and constituted the guiding principles of governance and administration. This vision that we shared constitutes the bedrock of our constitution. Speaking about the limitations of trickle-down theory of development, Pranab Da always held that the poor of the country shall find themselves as true partners in the narrative of raising India, and he did his best for the same. For him, secularism and tolerance are inherent in our ethos. Dear brothers and sisters, having briefly recalled the journey and philosophy of Pranab Da, let us now come to the theme of today's lecture. I appreciate Sharmishta Ji and her associates for choosing the theme of constitutionalism, the guarantor of democracy and inclusive growth. This theme and related issues were very dear to the heart of Pranab Da. Constitutionalism is all about a country being governed by a body of laws that flow from the provisions and the spirit of philosophy of the principal law of the land, that's the Constitution. This principle emerged after centuries of monarchy and aristocracy that witnessed a blatant violation of the basic rights and dignities of people by the arbitrariness of government of the day. Constitutionalism seeks to check such arbitrariness by defining the roles and responsibility of each organ of the state with the inbuilt mechanism for defending the basic rights of the governed. Such arbitrariness is further sought to be checked by ensuring the widest possible consultation among all sections of the people, thereby checkmating the rule by the will and discretion of the governments of the day. The makers of our constitution preferred the parliamentary form of democracy over the stability of presidential form to preciously ensure such wider consultations given the diversity and pluralism of our nation. Pranab Da, while addressing an RSS training camp at Nagpur in 2018, noted that such a democracy is not a gift but a sacred guide. Our constitution is a profound statement of the socio-economic objectives to be realized pursuing the path of participatory democracy and ensuring justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. It is a sacred guide that we gave to ourselves and needs to be followed in letter and spirit. It is necessary to give voice to every citizen in governance, which is democracy all about, and to ensure the benefits of development to all, which is inclusive growth all about. Strict adherence to constitutionalism only can ensure real democracy and inclusive growth. This brings us to the issue of state of parliamentary democracy in our country as we entered the 75th year of our hard-fought independence. The most significant achievements of our nation since freedom has been the consolidation of democracy. Contrary to the prophecies of doom about our ability to survive as one nation and a democracy, our experiments and successes with the periodic elections has amazed the world as many newborn nations failed in their twist with democracy. In my view, the common Indian has been the hero of our successful democratic project. The poor and the illiterate common Indian braved all odds to stand by the chosen instrument of parliamentary democracy for bettering their lives by even foregoing daily wages on the day of voting. In the process, about 5,000 MPs, MLAs, and MLCs, elected representatives are regularly elected to the parliament and state legislature, hoping that they would collectively articulate effectively people's concern and find solutions for their problems. In the present technology-driven, complex, globalized context, the responsibility of lawmakers have increased manyfold, even as the main challenge of building a modern India is work in progress. But what is happening inside the legislature for some years now has emerged as a major area of concern, where the legislatures are meant for deliberations on issues of wider public concern and making of effective laws for the benefit of the people and the nation. Disruption has emerged as the chief instrument of parliamentary conduct and functioning, unfortunately. Disrupted and dysfunctional legislatures are a subversion of the noble principle of constitutionalism. They result in blatant violation of the core principles of democracy. Dysfunctional legislatures prevent much desired stakeholder consultation before making of laws for the country and framing of policies. You need wider debate and discussion. You can have discussion provided if the House functions. And then you can talk of consultation and discussion, agreement, disagreement before making of laws for the country and framing of policies. Such disruptions negate the principle of accountability of the executive to the legislature, thereby promoting the tendency of arbitrariness, which constitutionalism seeks to checkmate. You cannot object to the passing of laws when you yourself disrupt the proceedings of the parliament, did not allow the debate to go on. Duty of the government is to bring in legislations. It is the duty of parliament to discuss, debate, and decide. In the 75th year of our independence, there is an imperative need to make a concrete beginning to restore the sanctity of our legislatures. Pranab Da was deeply pained by the rising trend of disruptions in our legislatures, including the parliament. He used to fervently stress on the need for upholding decency, decorum, and dignity in the legislature. He had suggested a simple formula of debate, discuss, and decide, and don't disrupt for lawmaking bodies to be effective. Umpteen number of times, whenever I met him, we discussed about the functioning of the legislature. He always used to feel sorry about what is happening in certain legislatures across the country, including the parliament. He was suggesting there is no substitute other than debate, discussion, and decide, and don't disrupt for lawmaking bodies to be effective. Protesting against the omissions and commissions of the governments on the floor of the legislature is the right of the legislators. But the emotional underpinnings of such protests should not cross the limits of decency and decorum that should mark parliamentary democracy. To ensure this, I have been advocating that let the government propose, the opposition oppose, and the House dispose. There is no substitute to this. The sacred mandate given by the people of our country and the trust imposed by them should not be betrayed by the elected representatives. The need of the hour is the behavioral change among the 5,000 lawmakers of the country who resort to disruptions. But I can tell you on this occasion, the disruptors are not many, but few people disrupt and bring bad name to the legislature. This is what is happening. The mission of enhancing the dignity of our legislature is very simple. It is mission 5,000 for effective parliamentary democracy. If the elected MPs, MLAs and MLCs can mend their ways and conduct themselves appropriately inside the legislatures, our lawmaking bodies would certainly look much different from what they are now. The people of our country are earnestly looking for such a qualitative turn around in the functioning of our lawmaking bodies. They have a right to such expectation, having played a key role in the consolidation of democracy. Particularly so when young India is impatient to fulfill their genuine aspirations. To achieve this mission 5,000, there is an imperative need for campaign by the people to influence the legislators to conduct themselves positively in the legislative chambers. Various elements of this campaign could be to identify the disruptors and raise the same when such lawmakers visit respective constituencies and areas. To launch Mission 5,000, special media handles constituency, state-wise, and post the names of disruptors with comments, awakened citizens to hold meetings to discuss the functioning of respective legislatures and elected representatives. Writing letters to daily newspapers, voicing concern over the conduct of such legislators, sending messages of concern to the disruptors, and more importantly, to take into consideration the parliamentary performance and conduct of the elected representatives while voting in the next elections, etc. This is a missing link. Performance in parliament and legislature, and then getting ticket or getting elected or re-elected are losing connection. The broad objective is to convey to the erring lawmakers the concern of the people over the conduct in the lawmaking bodies and the need for legislature to be the forums for debate and discussion and not disruption. Disrupted and dysfunctional legislature can disrupt the lives of the people. It's not only disrupting the lives of the parliamentarians, but it's disrupting the lives of the people and the dreams of our nation. Pranab once said that the parliament is the soul of the people and the Atman of the nation. If the soul of democracy is to be safeguarded, lawmakers should be held accountable for their conduct both within and outside the law-making bodies. This accountability is very, very important. I always say, even while selecting candidates, character, caliber, capacity, and conduct has to be taken into consideration. But unfortunately, in certain areas, these 4 C's are being replaced by other 4 C's: caste, community, cash, and criminality. Some people try to push that agenda. In this landmark 75th year of our independence, I appeal to all the 5,000 legislators of our country to resolve not to disrupt the proceedings of the legislature during this year. Thereafter, I can assure them that it will become a habit, having sensed the fragrance of constructive conduct in the legislatures and the appreciation it would get from media and the people at large. This Mission 5,000, with the patrons of our parliamentary democracy keeping an eye on the functioning of our legislature and elected representatives seeking a change in attitudes and parliamentary conduct, would go a long way in ensuring qualitative democracy in our country. If these 5,000 elected representatives don't change and are not made to change, our parliamentary democracy would be hollow by losing its sheen and appeal, and it's not good for our nation. This is the time to move towards the change. My dear sisters and brothers, during the last 75 years, we have seen great parliamentarians who have taken the debate to the great heights and contributed their best for the strengthening of the parliamentary democracy. In both the houses of parliament, in Lok Sabha as well as in Rajya Sabha, And even in certain state legislatures also, wonderful speeches are made. Governments are brought to accountability. Now, what is happening in certain legislatures is really distressing. So, if you want to move on, we have miles to go before we rest in Lawrence. We need to define our mission for India 100. We need to have a wish list for the 100th year of our freedom. We are now celebrating 75th year of our independence. By the time we approach 100th year, we must have an agenda. One such agenda I propose is getting rid of remnants of poverty and illiteracy, ensuring affordable and quality health care for all, good education, good health, good number of our academic and research institutions being among the top in the world, ending gender discrimination, social discrimination, enhanced and equal participation of women in workforce, employment for all the needy and eligible, substantially reducing the working force depending on agriculture by doubling the share of manufacturing in the GDP as we make our country Atmanirbhar, ensuring farming as a remunerative enterprise. This is more important as 50% of our people depend on agriculture. And agriculture, we say, is our basic culture. So we must ensure that a remunerative becomes a remunerative enterprise and ending all kinds of exploitation of farmers. Minimizing the inequalities through inclusive and sustainable high growth strategies, increasing the per capita incomes manifold through a sustained high growth trajectory will be the top of the agenda. India taking its due place in the United Nations Security Council, that's another wish. Having got the first Prime Minister from the backward communities, to have the first Prime Minister from weaker sections, and at least half a dozen women Chief Ministers as a vindication of our inclusive policy. India being the preferred destination for investments and immigrants, besides becoming the leading hub of innovation. I'm sure Pranab Da would have been in complete agreement with this vision for 100. I'm confident that given the heightened intensity of our nation's collective effort that has been set in motion in recent years for building a new India, strong, stable, prosperous, happy India, this agenda can be accomplished. The Prime Minister has given a 3-line mantra. He said, reform, perform, and transform. Transformation for the betterment of the nation. We have no doubt we will succeed. We have no option but to succeed in this mission. Hence, the next 25 years are very crucial for our nation. For this agenda to be achieved by the 100th year of Free India, effective functioning of our legislature is very essential. And the Mission 5000 that I referred to earlier assumes significance. Dear brothers and sisters, Pranab Da and I might have been different ideological intent and approach. But for both of us, India came first. Nation first, party next, self last. And Pranab Da became the first former president of India to address a RSS training camp at Nagpur. It was a profound statement of rising above the usual divide, the larger interest. On the issue of nationalism, he endorsed, and I quote, nation is defined as a large group of people sharing the same culture, language, or history. Nationalism is defined as identification with one's own nation. Patriotism is defined as devotion to one's own country. Country means people. People's welfare is patriotism. Wherever, whoever is speaking of nationalism and patriotism, nothing more is being asked for than what Pranab Da said. No wonder he was a pathfinder on the contentious issues and settled the issues of nationalism. The consensus builder that he was, I'm sure that if alive today, Pranab Da would have welcomed the recent undoing of the retrospective taxation. Pranab Da used to visit his village, Merathi, every year for Dasara festival. He was an inheritor and practitioner of the best of Indian traditions and ethos. For over 50 years, Pranab Da was an intrinsic part of every challenge that our nation collectively faced. He did so even during the COVID-19 pandemic. He too tested positive, as if he wanted to empathize with the sufferings of the fellow Indians by going through it himself. Persons like Pranab Da have their own ways of connecting with the people, communicating with the people. I'm indeed honored to have got this opportunity of taking a peek into the life and works of Pranab Da on this occasion, and I pay my tributes to one of the great sons of our motherland. I thank the Pranab Mukherjee Legacy Foundation for giving me this opportunity. I also thank all the participants for giving me a hearing. Pranab Da's life and works are a certain source of inspiration. These lectures, these awards are meant for giving inspiration to the new generation. Let us do our bit to realize the dreams of Pranab Da and all of us. I once again compliment Parmishta ji and her close associates for having come together to start this foundation and the series of lectures in order to remind the services he has offered to the country and also the great examples he has set in before all of us. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.